Hi all, welcome. Ank Kleinmeulman here. Good to see you again. Our website is www.cwowi.eu and it stands for Church Without Walls International. We are part of a house church network. So when you're interested about it, go to our website. If you want to have more teachings or videos, there's a lot of information for you that you can find on the website. Okay, today I want to continue what I started last week. And last week I started to talk about a vision the Lord gave some years ago during one of our international conferences that we have every year here, that we host here every year in the Netherlands, and that was a vision of the bride and the groom. And today I want to explain it a little bit more. I want to share with you some customs during a Jewish wedding ceremony and how that is important for us because we are the bride of Christ. And I want to share the last part actually of the vision where the bride and the groom, came in and walked in together. So a short review, you can go back of course to the last video and just hear what I was saying about it. What I shared about it, but it was a new day. That was an important, and in the mind of the Lord, it's a new day to us. We are to focus on the coming wedding that there will be between the Lord. We are His bride, and He will come and pick us up, and together there will be a marriage ceremony. In Revelation 19, it says, when you go there, it says, "Let us be glad and rejoice and give Him glory, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and His wife has made herself ready. And to her it was granted to be arrayed in fine linen, clean and bright, for the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints." We are righteous. So I shared that the bride, the groom, was actually dressing and preparing himself for the wedding, and it was a new day. There was a calendar. It was another day, and then the next part that I saw, that was when the groom and the bride walked in together, and she was holding his hand like this, and a few steps, and then he showed his bride to everyone who was present there, and it was such a proud and such a joy, and yet the Lord was so proud of his bride, and it was so joyful that he could finally present his bride to everyone who was present there. And then that was the end of the vision. And later on, when I was thinking about it, and that's the case, what the Lord does, because His words are life and they are spirit. So when you think about it, meditate upon it, there's life in it, and there continues to be more life. You probably know it yourself when you have like a word for someone and you speak it out, and later on you think, oh no, there was so much more that I could have shared. That's because there is life. Okay, but the way they walked in was very important. That reminded me of the coronation of our king and his wife, the queen now, King Willem-Alexander, and his wife is Maxima, the way they walked in for the coronation. And that's mentioned to me that, okay, it is a wedding, of course, of the bride and the groom, but it is also the coronation. It's one and the same festival, because we will reign with Him for 1,000 years. So to us, we have to be prepared. We have to prepare ourselves, and later on I will share a little bit what does it mean that the bride is preparing herself. How does she do that? What does it mean to rule and reign with Him? How can we prepare? How is the Lord preparing us to rule and reign with Him? But today I want to share you some messages, that we can find when you study about a Jewish wedding ceremony. Okay, right now we are in the time of betrothal, or you could say we are engaged, but not really engaged. But engaged means you can break it off. But when you are betrothed, it means there was a legal document that was signed. You were legally bound to your husband, but there was no physical consummation yet. The consummation of the marriage will occur when we depart and when we celebrate the marriage supper of the Lamb in heaven. So, but when a prospective groom wanted to propose to a young lady, he would go to her room, talk to her father. He carried 3 things to her home. It was a large amount of money. It was called the bride price. Then there was a contract, a betrothal contract, and there was wine. And if they agreed on it, and if the father agreed, and the young lady was called out, and if she agreed, first of all, the groom would drink take a sip of the wine, and then he would hand the cup to the bride. And if she accepted it, and if she wanted to be married to him, she drank the cup of wine. That was her saying, "Yes, I do," so to speak. And when she did not agree, didn't want to marry him, she did not drink of that cup. So. Okay, and then the groom would say to the bride, "Now I go, in my Father's house are many rooms. I am going to prepare a place for us, so that you may come and be where I am also." And that is a quote where Jesus mentioned in John 14. Okay, but the bride price, oftentimes it was money. It was a large amount of money, because it had to cost the groom something. You know, it had to be a pricely thing. But if he was not that wealthy, it could also mean like labor. And you see it in for Jacob in the Old Testament, when he worked 14 years for Leah and Rachel together. But in the contract, it stated the bride's price. In the contract were the promises that the groom made to his wives, to his coming wife, and also all the rights and privilege of the bride. So amazing. And like one of those promises was like that the groom would work for her, provide for her, make sure that she was fine and stuff like that. And also, what they say, the blessings, you know, and the privileges of the bride. And when you think of that in terms of we are the bride, well, the Lord promised to take care of us, right? To provide for us and to meet every need that we have and stuff. And the privileges, like we are righteous. He gave the gifts of the Holy Spirit. That's actually what the groom did too. He carried the gift with him. And usually he gave the bride a ring. And that was called a ring of sanctification. Sanctification means set apart, like holy. Holy means being set apart for a purpose. So now the bride was set apart, had to become his wife. And then of course then he said, "Okay, I'm going to to my Father's house to prepare a place for you." And then in ancient days, then when the friends of the groom would say, "Okay, when are you going to pick up your wife?" He didn't know. He would say, "I do not know the day nor the hour, only my Father knows." And the father would give the final say-so to his son, when everything was made ready for the bride to come. He would say to his son, "Okay, now you can go and pick her up." And then, but in the meantime, when her husband was gone, or the groom was gone, the wife, she would veil herself, and I have some information about that too. Where does it say? Yeah, she would veil herself whenever she was out in public, and she hid herself behind the veil not to be identified, and it sends a message that she was taken and that all other men are forbidden. And she kept herself veiled until the marriage was consummated. That says something to us. We are veiled for the world. They don't know that we are the bride of Christ. We are hidden, so to speak, hidden in the Messiah, hidden in the Lord. But also that we are not available to any other man, because we are for the Lord and for Him alone. Okay, we are bound to Him. I think, yeah, alrighty. What else can I share about that? About the cup, of course. And then, of course, the bride price, 1 Corinthians 6:20, where Paul says, "You've been bought with a price. Glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's." He is referring also to the betrothal. 2 Corinthians 11, verse 2. Paul says, "I promised you to one husband, Christ, so that I may present you as a pure virgin to Him." Wow, that's amazing. And that's also what Paul is talking here about, the same betrothal. We are right now betrothed to Him. We are legally bound to Him. We do not know Him yet. We haven't seen Him yet, but we know He will be there. And He will wait for us. He's preparing a place for us. And when the Father says it's time, He will come and pick us up. That's actually in the rapture. Okay, then drinking the cup of the covenant, that has another meaning too. It means not only that she accepted the proposal of marriage, but that she would eagerly look for the groom and prepare herself, looking towards the day that he would come and get her for the marriage celebration. So Paul says, when we receive the Lord's Supper, we do so in remembrance until He comes. which is a reference to the Feast of Trumpets too, but also as the Messiah when he comes for his bride. Okay, so when we celebrate the supper, we do so looking for his return. And we do that also as the betrothed. We are bought with the price of his blood. We are committed. Every time you take of that cup, you are committed yourself, that you are there, you present yourself holy and not separated from the world. You will not look to the world or to any other husband, but only you will forsake all others, and you save yourself in faithfulness to him until the marriage supper of the Lamb. Wow, there's a lot more to say about that. Next week I will probably share a little bit about how do we prepare ourselves. As the bride was preparing herself, she was waiting for him every day because she didn't know when he would come. There was like a light in the window, and she had to keep the oil in there, so the light was always burning, and she had to wait for that sound, and the bridegroom would come to pick her up, because she didn't know when he would come. Okay, but we are ready. We are waiting for him. We know he will come. He promised us. We are bound to him, and we are to forsake every other lover. That's why Paul says, what did he say in James 4? I think it is here. He says, what does he say? He says, adulterous and adulteresses, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity of God? Wow, he's referring that they are married, betrothed to the Lord. So he says you are adulterous when you flirt with the world. That's something to think about. Okay, see you next week. Bye bye.